I think the groundhog was a little bit optimistic this year. It's still a little too early to set out my transplants. The snow and ice is collapsing my hoop house. It's a good day to sit inside, drink a cup of tea, and talk about gardening. The poor plants. They need warmth to grow, and they need water. They need air with carbon dioxide in it. If we take all the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, all the plants are going to die. And in the soil, they need nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and to a lesser extent, magnesium, calcium, iron, and a host of other elements. But even if they have all of those other things, they still won't grow without light. So the topic for today's discussion: how much light do plants need to grow? First of all, plants don't see light the same way humans do. What they care about is photosynthetically active radiation, that portion of the light spectrum they can use to photosynthesize. I'll pull a graphic up on my computer so you can see what I'm talking about. The bottom axis represents time. The vertical axis is PAR. This center group of 3 lines represents the amount of light that a plant sees on the spring or fall equinox. Sunup is at 6 a.m., peaks at noon, and sunsets at 6 p.m. The top line represents a sunny day. The second line represents a partly cloudy, partly sunny day. And the bottom line represents a cloudy day. If you look down here at these 3 lines, this would be your winter solstice, and these upper 3 lines would be your summer solstice. And the area under the curve represents the total amount of light that a plant sees during a given day. When you're growing plants outdoors, you don't really have much control over the light source. You can control whether or not you plant your garden in full sun, in partial sun, or in shade. When you're growing indoors, you have control over your light source. In this case, I've drawn a line for a fairly low intensity light that's running 16 hours a day. And here's a more intense light source that's running for 12 hours a day. You can control the intensity of the light, the instantaneous PAR reading, based on how close you put the light source to your plants. And you can control the total amount of light the plants receive by lengthening or shortening the amount of hours you run your light source for. That's the theory, but how does it work out in practice? If you don't give your plants enough light, the leaves will turn yellow and the plants will die. If you give your plants too much light, the leaves will turn yellow and the plant will die. It's the same result. The biggest difference is if your plants get too much light, the leaves will get burned spots on them, where portions of the leaf will die and turn brown and crispy before the leaf dies completely. But through the wonders of modern technology, it's now practical for the average home gardener to take actual light readings and determine just how much light plants are receiving. This is the plant monitor we're using. It's made by North. It's a one-piece assembly. You just open it up and pull the plastic cover off the battery protector, and you stick it in your plant. As soon as you do, it starts collecting data. The monitor is Bluetooth enabled, so if you have one of these personal data collection and location tracking devices, you can link it to your plant monitor and then you can access the data. The sensor monitors moisture in the soil, fertility levels, light levels, and the air temperature. What we're most concerned with is the sunlight reading. If you look here, we have it set for romaine lettuce. You can see the real-time PAR reading, 974, and then here it gives a range of what the best PAR readings are for your plant. And if we click on this title, it will bring up the data that it's been accumulating. We'll bring up a weekly report, and it shows the accumulated data. You can see that today we only have a partial reading. And if we click on yesterday, and then if we sweep to the right, you can see the total millimoles of light that were accumulated yesterday. This is an old AeroGarden 7 that I used to germinate seeds. It's currently set for tomatoes and peppers, and it runs the lights for 16 hours a day. For the last several weeks we've been taking light readings. I took readings here at the edge of the hood, and that was 30 PAR. And then I took a reading here in the center, that was 60 PAR, and that was with old fluorescent bulbs. Then I replaced both of the bulbs, and now it has a reading of about 100 in the center of the hood. So the old fluorescent tubes were producing about 40% less light than the new ones, and that's always a concern when you're using fluorescent lights for growing plants indoors. With the old bulbs I was getting just about 3,300 millimoles of light per day. And with the new bulbs, the reading is almost 5,500 millimoles, and that means I can raise the hood a few inches, and that'll give a wider distribution of light so I can put more seedlings underneath. I seem to achieve the best results with the millimole number somewhere between 2,000 and 4,500. Now let's go take a look at the LED grow light I've been using. This is my LED grow light from GalaxyHydro. We bought it used without instructions, so I didn't know how to set it up. I did some research on the internet, and I chose a lamp height of 20 inches. I used it to grow my tomato seedlings last year, and we had some problems with the seedlings turning yellow. And I thought it might be because the plants weren't getting enough light. After all, it's a used fixture, and I didn't know if the LED output was rolling off. And it's hard to notice the yellowing leaves because of the odd color that the fixture gives off. So this year I ran a test, and I took some cabbage seedlings and put them up on top of a coffee can to get them closer to the light fixture. It burnt them to a crisp, but it's hard to tell under this light. So let me turn the light off, and we'll go to some regular fluorescent lighting so you can see what happened. Here's what's left of one of the cabbage plants. So I raised the light fixture to 29 inches, and that reduced the intensity of the light. You can see the new leaves growing in on the cabbage plants are nice and dark green, and the old leaves underneath have died off. I had a similar problem with these lettuce plants. You can see the one Tom Thumb lettuce, which is a butter crunch style. You can see the brown leaves that are still there. But for the leaf lettuces, these are Thai oak leaf. The lower leaves just died off and came off the plant. But they look good now. And my purple lady bok choy has turned purple again. And the new leaves on these arugula plants are nice and dark green, but they may have suffered too much damage to recover. And I've got half a tray of black-seeded Simpson lettuce that I just put under the lights yesterday, and it looks good so far. When I actually took light readings with the fixture at 20 inches, I had a PAR reading of 130. We were running that for 12 hours, which was about 6,200 millimoles, which is 6.2 moles. And for the plants I put on top of the coffee can, the reading was 300 PAR, and we were getting about 12.5 moles of energy. There are marijuana growers claiming they can run 8 to 10 moles of energy a day on their plants, but it requires careful application of fertilizer and water. And there are some pot growers trying to push their plants to 20 moles of energy a day. That requires the injection of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. I won't comment about whether releasing global warming greenhouse gases into your greenhouses to grow plants is a good or bad idea. So let's take the monitor outside and get some real-time readings on a sunny day in March. Today is March 16th, 2022. The sun is at its peak, and we've moved the light sensor outside to take an instantaneous PAR reading. I'd like to say it's high noon, but yesterday the Senate voted to permanently make high noon 1 o'clock. What a bunch of losers. We're getting a PAR value of 1485.8, which is in the red. I assume it's because it's way too high. Now we'll move it into the shade and see what kind of reading we get. The junkyard cat is coming out to join us. Shouldn't you be harassing the birds?
They caught the guy. He was killing people in New York, Washington, and Baltimore.
Okay, we've moved it into the shade, and here it's got a reading of 144.7. That reading is in the black, and that shows you that during the peak of the day, the plants are getting more PAR, photosynthetically active radiation, than they can deal with. And so they start to shut down photosynthesis to protect themselves. So if you're struggling with your indoor plant growing setup, I recommend you find one of these plant monitors. They give you a lot of useful information, and it will help improve your success rate. And now the snow is melted off, so it's time to get my transplants put out in the garden. Go make some stuff grow.